Two things can be true at once. One is that I think reaction content is lazy and a waste of time, and two is that I enjoy making it. The reason why statement number one rings true to me is because most of the time there's no additional layer of analysis provided to the thing that the person is reacting to. It is genuinely very lazy, with the exception of those things where it's like scuba diver breaks down 15 underwater scenes from movies. Someone with expertise is able to tell you what's true and what's false about pop culture depictions of topics that your average person doesn't really know about. I don't consider that reaction content. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just some random guy in a gamer chair who sits down and puts on an episode of some anime or The Boys or whatever and just goes, I hate that. Which is why I hate calling what I do a reaction, because while I am contributing to this genre of content that I dislike, I'm trying to elevate it. I'm trying to dig really deep into something and pull influences or life lessons or personal stories out of it. I am coming at a text and not just covering it in a blanket of watch this thing with me, but trying to cut it up and re-quilt it into something new. And that's why statement 2 rings true to me, because it's fun, it's analytical. God blessed or cursed me with a brain that needs to pick apart every single little thing that I watch or read and compulsively analyze it. I miss the God complex that I got from 11th grade AP Lit. Even though I'm very good at analysis, and I do think that media analysis is a skill that not everyone has, that can be built and honed and practiced, and is something that I've put a lot of practice into. I do not have any authority on the opinions or observations or whatever it is that I give when I am watching a show. I didn't help create the show, so I don't have any true insight into it. And I don't have any sort of credentials or degrees or anything like that that would make me an authority figure, that would put my videos in that category of scuba diver breaks down 15 underwater scenes. I have a degree in linguistics. That's completely different from literary analysis. But the fact remains that I am very good at literary analysis, and that I enjoy it, and that it's very fun to do. But I think the thing that maybe frustrates me the most is that it's a pseudo-creative creativity. It's not true creativity. I'm looking at this thing, this finished product that someone has already created, whether it's a book or a movie or a show or a comic, whatever. And I'm just talking about this thing that someone else created. It's not generative. Generative creativity would be this screenplay that I wrote, or this short story, or this book, or this illustration that I did. That's true generative creativity, and that's harder to do than this reactive creativity. In some sense, it's because of the community that is built around a pre-existing piece of media. When a bunch of people watch it, they come together, they want to talk about it. And so it's easier to be creative, I think, around something that already exists. It's harder to get someone else to care about a thing that only exists inside of you. When some existing media property is out there, anyone can access it, anyone can talk about it. It's common bonding ground. You can't do that with something that only you know about, because nobody cares yet, and it's your job to make them care. And making someone care about the thing that you have created is a lot harder than talking about something that people already care about. And so it's difficult for me spending so much time investing into this non-generative creative process. The medium is creative. Right, I'm creating a video that has not existed before. I have to come up with the things to say and say them. But the content itself is not creative. I'm talking about a show that I did not create, that I had no hand in creating. And so it's very frustrating to me as a creative person sometimes when I get stuck in that rut of just reactive creativity instead of generative creativity, because I start to feel guilty. Like, why am I working on my 12th Trigun video in a row when I gave up on that screenplay that I wrote in college years ago? Objectively, it would take much less work to finish that screenplay. It was very short, but there's no return on that. Nobody cares about the screenplay that I've made, which is why when you're a creative person, you have to care so much about what you're creating, because you're the only one that's going to carry it through. You are the only audience member that matters. And so when you stop caring, it dies. Please don't let your creative projects die. And so there's nothing wrong, I think, with this reactive creative content because I do feel like I have something of value to say, but I also feel like by the very nature of creating reactive content, there is nothing of value there that wasn't already there in the show. Like, why would you watch me when you could just go watch that show? Why would you listen to what I have to say when I have no authority to say it? But I would be lying if I said that there wasn't reactive content out there that had actually spoken to me. I think if any of you are familiar with Alex Goodwin, his series on Attack on Titan literally changed my life. I felt like I was insane believing the things that I believed about that show because no one else was seeing it the way that I was seeing it. And then I found his videos and found myself agreeing with nearly every point that he brings up. I realized, oh, maybe I was right about everything that I thought. I have a lot to say, and I'm happy to say it and to share it with people. But I want you to take what I say and think about what you already think and take what you like from what I say, but not just adopt everything that I say as gospel truth. I want people to be able to analyze things for themselves and not just listen to what a stranger has to say on the internet, even if I think I'm qualified to say what I say. So I hope for all of your sakes that you don't just listen to me, because since the day I was born, I have had this problem where because I can say things with a certain degree of confidence and eloquence that people will just believe me. And it's very fortunate for all those people that believe me that I'm a very truthful person and I do my best not to lie, because I could very well misuse that. Or not even in a malicious sense. If there's something that I believe is true but I'm mistaken about the veracity of those claims, then maybe someone else would believe that also, simply because I said it with a degree of confidence. There's a constant push and pull in me because reactive creative content is something to build community around. You know, it's discussing a movie with your friends after you walk out of the theater. It's connecting with your coworker that you don't know very well in the break room because maybe the show that airs on Saturday that you both watch is the one thing that you have in common to talk about. Stories are built to connect us, and I think that talking about stories is a very effective way to not just analyze media and what you like and what you prefer and what you think is good and what you think is bad, but to introspect and to talk about these things in community with people. But the fact of the matter is that reactive creative content is not fully creative. I can't inject themes that I want to talk about into a story if they're not already there. I have to create my own thing in order to talk about those themes. And it's much harder to create your own thing and to get those themes or ideas or characters or stories out there because you have to do all the work of also not just producing a well-written story or art piece or project, but you have to somehow convince people to care. And what will go the furthest in convincing people to care about your own creative things is to care about them yourself. Not to care so much that your identity is wrapped up in that thing, and if someone that you love doesn't like that thing that you've created, that you feel like then they don't like you. But maybe it's enough that they care about you, and even if they don't like the thing that you've created, they care that you have found creativity and satisfaction in creating that thing, and so they're willing to support you in that creative endeavor. And so I don't have an answer to the plague of frustrating, soulless reaction content. And I don't have an answer to the bizarre balancing act that I feel between generative creativity and reactive creativity. And I'm not going to stop doing either. But there comes a point where reactive creativity is so much easier that you abandon all of your own generative creativity, especially when you experience some success in community building. But then you run the risk of creating for your community or for your audience instead of just for yourself. If at any point I decide I don't want to make reaction videos anymore or commentary videos or whatever, I will stop. And I don't care if people are disappointed by that. I have to create the things that I feel are life-giving. And for me, sometimes reactive content, even if it is creative and analytical, is not life-giving. I'm not going to stop with the analysis anytime soon, but I just want to bring up a lot of the things that have been plaguing me as a creative person, and just to tell people to create more instead of consuming, and to create original things instead of rehashing the same things over and over again, and to cultivate a spirit of your own analysis instead of just listening to what other people have to say. And if you like what someone has to say, listen to that and adopt that, but don't be afraid to weed out the bits of it that you think are unfounded or aren't relevant or are too subjective to that person. I want people to create what they like, but I want people to be mindful about it. Don't just only create or consume fan works. And if you don't feel that you're creative enough to create your own original things, then focus on supporting the people in your life that are creative and that do have passion projects to work on. Because if those people don't get to work on what they love, we wouldn't have any stories to build community around or to analyze or to react to in the first place. Analytical content can be a very useful tool because a lot of good stories, will raise questions and not answer them because you as the viewer or the reader are intended to think about those questions and come up with your own answers. But when you just go to someone on YouTube to hear their answers, you run the risk of just absorbing everything that they have to say and not thinking of what you actually believe. Does a reactor or commentator actually provide commentary on what's happening? Or do they just make faces or rehash what happened in the story? Because one of those things is creative and can have value, and the other is completely useless. And I think there's an enormous gulf between those two things, which is why I put so much sauce into what I have to say. And I'm trying so hard to provide commentary and videos that are worth your time. All that to say, I don't have a conclusion. I don't have an answer. Anyway, all these weird, complex feelings surrounding reactive creative content are part of why it's taking me so long to begin my manga review, because I don't know how I want to format it and I don't exactly know how I feel about it, but it should be coming out soon. Nothing frustrates me more than when I click on a video of someone who reads or watches something and they just summarize what the book was instead of delving into the themes or even just telling me how they felt about it, aside from I liked it or I didn't. Like, what worked, what resonated, what were the themes, what can you compare it to, what can you contrast it with? Did something tackle this topic better? They're very simple beginner questions, but if you want to build your skills of analysis, you have to just start by asking yourself very stupid sounding basic questions. And don't call something a deep dive if all you're gonna do is summarize what happened in the story. Just call it a summary. Anyway, that's all. Bye.